2000 Ford F-250 Powerstroke diesel. I guess here's what we're gonna be putting in there. I figured I'd make a video. I've never done this before, and so I figured, man, if there was a video I could watch, it'd be awesome. Okay guys, so I did go ahead and read the directions, and it turns out it's a pretty simple process, okay? There's 3 steps to this game, and basically step 1 is, and it would be good to have a spray bottle for these two, but step 1 is you need to go ahead and wet down the oil pan with this and keep it wet for about 15 minutes. That's where the spray bottle comes in really good. And then after 15 minutes, the instructions state to rinse it with water and allow it to air dry. After that happens and you've removed all the loose rust, and I'm going to use a little bit of 400 grit as it recommends in the instructions. It does not like smooth shiny surfaces, and the instructions recommend using 400 grit sandpaper just to rough the surface. And then after you do that, you go ahead and do the same thing as you did with step 1, is spray bottle, go ahead and wet down the oil pan with this. Keep it wet for about 10 to 15 minutes while it does its business, and then after then you rinse it with water and allow it to go ahead and air dry again. After you're done with those 2 steps, then your last and final step, which states not to shake the can but to stir the paint in here. Keep it sealed because it's very sensitive to moisture when you're finished with it. Or if you plan to use it later, you need to refrigerate it, but otherwise you just go at it with the brush and sponge to coat the oil pan with 1 to 2 thin coats, and it's supposed to take about an hour to dry. So it's gonna be to really prep this oily surface here, because that stuff I guess does not really like oil too much. So my job is now to remove the oil filter there, get up in the side, get all of that rust going back to the front there. Should be a little bit of a challenge, but no doubt we should be okay getting it done. Let's get another last look there at the oil pan. Okay. For now, all I'm doing is just prepping the oil pan as best as I can, and again, without even reading the instructions or using any of the chemicals from the kit. That's basically where we're at so far. I'm trying to degrease this area here. I have removed the torque converter cover or flex plate cover or whatever you choose to call that. I also went ahead and removed the oil filter and of course drained the oil. And now I'm just, like I said, I'm trying to degrease every basically crevice and area up in there, and that's what we're doing so far. So once I actually get into the instruction portion of things, there we go. Just trying to get the loose rust off with the screwdriver. Okay guys, here's step 1. Kind of cheated already, but step 1 is to put the degreaser in a spray bottle. Step 1 is to come in here and get her wet and keep it wet like this for about 15 minutes. And what happens then is this degreaser just basically loosens up all kinds of, you know, grease. And then after this, we're gonna hose it off with water and allow it to air dry. Okay, so we'll check back in after that. Wash it off with just water. This is what this looks like. You can see I kind of started there already. Let's zoom that in there. And so that's what it looks like. And you basically just want to go in there like that. And get it nice and non-shiny. And I believe, for example, that would be good enough, as long as it's not shiny. Okay? Now we're ready for the second and final step before paint, and that is the metal prep. So what I've done was I went ahead and put that into a spray bottle, and we're gonna, that's what it looks like after the first step degreased. I had to go back in there and rough up some more areas with sandpaper because there was a residue that was on there still. So now we'll go ahead and get this wet with the metal prep. Same thing here as step 2. You want to get it wet first and then get all these areas, and then basically just keep it wet for about 15 minutes and then hose it off. So we'll check back with you after that. Okay, so now we're ready for the final step, which would be to open this can and mix instead of, you know, shaking it. It says specifically in the instructions not to shake it. And I did do the third and final step, which is to wet it down with the metal prep. Hosed it off, allowed it to dry. So now this is what the prepped oil pan looks like. And we're just gonna go in here with the paintbrush.
Okay, let's go ahead and apply our first coat of this black stuff.
It is pretty thin, so be careful as far as, you know, splashing it on things and stuff like that. And it does go on very thin, so you don't need to dip the brush entirely to get what you see there. That's the first stroke. And being that this is super hard to paint while holding an iPhone, I am gonna pause the video, finish painting the rest of the pan, and then check in with you guys later, okay? But basically it's just like painting anything else. Okay, so this is what it looks like after the first coat of that paint, rust sealer stuff. As you can see, that's what the oil pan now looks like a new oil pan, but paint did go on pretty thin. There's some areas like there that you can still kind of see exposed, so this one will definitely be needing a second coat. But I was able to get most of the rusted areas. And you might want to set some rags down on the floor because this stuff just drips as you come out of the can with it. But yeah, here's another look at the oil pan. Still shiny because the paint is wet. But like I said, I did get all the rust spots except for like a small amount, but the second coat will definitely get them. Okay, a quick check-in reveals that it's, you know, look at that. It comes off on the glove. I would say that's pretty tacky, so I'm gonna... Okay, so we're almost fully reassembled now, and I only have one remaining piece to put on. It would be the flex plate cover, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts, but this bolt here is a little tricky. I have the screw started up in there, you can see it, and I'll try to hold it in place. I can imagine if you're doing this on the ground that that bolt could end up kicking your butt, but there it goes. Hold that correct. And then to get that bolt, what I use is 3/8 with a swivel on the 3/8 extension, and with that, be careful not to touch the positive of the starter, but with that you can see that I'm able to get on there and go ahead and finish tightening again. Okay, y'all, it's ready. I have it running out for about a half an hour or so, so let's take a look in the sunlight. Up here. There's that. Looks pretty good. Nice and shiny. And fresh oil change, which I guess maybe you didn't. If you're doing yours, you might not have to drain the oil and stuff. This did have a leak from the back, so I wanted to drain it, make sure the oil didn't get in the way. But yeah, everything's looking pretty good with it. No leaks. Go right to the front. Take a look
there. Everything looks good. Yeah. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe.
Make sure you subscribe to my channel, please.